So Dominic, with that being said, how high do you kind of match this guy up next? I mean, I know he's just getting the win here, and we have a lot of lightweights kind of sitting around doing a whole lot of nothing right now. That's kind of the way I'm looking at the top of this division. I think there's a lot of guys kind of getting nervous.
Yeah.
They're trying to make their money while they can because I think a lot of these guys that have been up at the top for a long time recognize that the Gamrots, the Makachevs, the Saryukians, the Fizievs,
They're coming.
they're coming. And I don't know how many of these guys, the Dustin Poiriers, the Justin Gaethjes, the Michael Chandlers, uh, even Benil Dariush maybe. Like, I don't know if those guys, I don't know how many of those they can win. So,
Yeah.
um, for you with this win, where do you kind of place Fiziev next? What kind of matchup can he really expect in his next fight?
Well, I mean, to your point, with a lot of these veterans that are in that top five, I don't think they're going to accept a fight with these young
Mm.
guys right now, at least until they get their name up a little bit more. But even then, I just don't know. Because a lot of these guys don't even have that many fights left in them, So why would they want to fight some young up and coming guy where they'll just be like, oh, they can wait, I'll leave, and then they'll come back. So call me crazy here, and I don't even really necessarily like that I'm doing this, but I kind of feel like it's the route the UFC might do. Rafael Fiziev and Matos Gamrot 5 round main event, 7 versus 8.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. Really going for it right
that's what
there.
I would do. That's what I would do.
And that's a fight where the rankings don't tell the story. Like, that's
No,
truly a title eliminator type fight. That is
yeah,
a top five level main event.
yeah. And I would
Um,
again, like I wish both could fight further up, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So,
well, we can kind of walk through this together. We can look at the lightweight division,
hmm
kind of where it stands, and see if we can put the pieces together here.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And I know that this is changing on a week to week basis, but and maybe we just talked about this kind of a little bit last week with Volkanovski now trying to
hmm
throw his name in the hat. So technically, we don't have a champion. We do,
yeah,
but you get what I mean.
yeah.
The belt is up for grabs technically. Charles Oliveira should, and I hope will be a part of that vacant title fight whenever it's announced.
Yeah.
It's got to be either Islam Makhachev or Alexander Volkanovski.
Right. One would think.
I would slightly prefer, after kind of laying on it, sleeping on it a little bit, I would slightly prefer the Islam Makhachev fight.
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer Volkanovski to just stick at 145. I think there's a lot of good matchups still to make there, and I don't think he's quite like cleaned out the division. Beat Max 3 times says a lot,
Yeah.
but I still think there's other guys. I think Josh Emmett, even though you might not give him much of a chance, him, Yair
If
Rodriguez.
Yair wins next week, yeah.
Yeah, you got good fights. I mean, even Calvin Cater could work his way right back. The
Yeah.
winner of Chikadze Sadiq is going to be
Arnold
right there.
Allen's
Arnold
there.
Allen, yep. So, and not to mention like Bryce Mitchell's on the
Yeah.
way up. Like
Yeah.
there's solid guys that are on their way up. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to favor any of them to beat Volkanovski. I'm just saying I would prefer Volkanovski sticks around there, and not to mention Henry Cejudo could be a fight as well.
True.
So let's do Charles Islam, right? And let's say that happens by the end of the year. So
hmm
that puts puts the title picture kind of out of reach for now. Then you got Dustin Poirier, who had that moment at UFC 276. The video came out of him and Michael
I
Chandler
saw
kind of
that.
going at it. But from all I keep hearing is that there's a good chance that him and Nate Diaz still gets made. That's what I keep
I
kind of.
still hope that's what happens for
And
Dustin.
when I say I keep hearing that, I keep going off of the way Ariel talks about it a little bit. He's very coy,
Yeah.
He has to be because he's not trying to blow up anything for Nate here. He's really advocating for Nate to get that fight. But I go off of the tone. Chance that September or October you might see that fight get announced. That seems to be the way that they're heading is for that fight still.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's going to hold true. But let's say Dustin Poirier is taken there. Justin Gaethje going to get surgery.
True.
He likely won't be back until early next year.
Yeah.
So he's kind of out of the picture, at least I would think so. I mean, Fiziev's likely not taking a fight until towards the end of the year, anyways. But um, After that, I mean, Beneil Dariush, I think, is a great choice.
It's him and Michael Chandler. That's the only
Did I
two left.
mention was Beneil Dariush who I said for Matos Gamrot? I think it
It
is.
may have been.
Poor
Poor
Beneil.
Benil.
I know. That's he's the odd man out, and that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. I don't. I kind of want Beneil to fight like soon though, and I
What do you
that
think
was
about
the
if he were to fight Michael Chandler?
yeah. I mean that's to me. I wonder if Michael. So did you see Michael Chandler's Instagram post that he kind of directed at Charles Oliveira?
I saw he was asking for basically like a vacant shot if he wants to wait for Conor. He'll fight
Yes. So
Islam.
he kind of worded it like if Charles is adamant about taking a counter fight and not fighting until
Yeah.
then he would love to step up and take a vacant title shot against Islam
Well, of course.
and then hold on to the belt, keep the seat warm, in
Yeah.
his words, until Charles would be ready to come back. Um, Not that I mind him calling a shot, but I think there's just a lot of flaws in that
Yeah.
scenario. I
Yes.
don't see Connor taking a Charles fight, especially if there's no belt on the line.
Hmm.
Um, That's the big one.
And just Chandler
I
like
don't think
shouldn't be.
I don't think Charles is going to want to wait that long to
Yeah.
fight. I mean, he's
Yeah.
fight literally the cream of the crop in the UFC. It took him so long to get to this point. Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you maximize that? But yeah. So I guess we're on the same page there. I do think Michael Chandler, Benil Dariush sounds pretty fucking awesome.
It'd be a
As
cool
like
fight, I think.
they probably put it on a pay per view because Michael Chandler seems to kind of be that kind of guy for the UFC. But
Yeah.
um,
And
I
then
think you're right. I
then
think
it's
Fiziev
Matos and
Gamrot.
yeah.
Honestly, Dom, I think it might be time to kind of go ahead and let these young guys kind of work themselves out. I mean,
Eventually, it's gonna just have to
I know it's
happen.
it's it's going to be frustrating for a lot of fans probably if that gets announced because they're going to be like, why aren't some of these guys in front of them getting told they need to fight these
Right.
guys? But I do think you kind of break it down, and there is legit kind of
Yeah.
reasons around. None of
Yeah.
these guys I think are avoiding those fights, but I do think that there's a lot of there's a lot of big money fights available in this division, and I think there's a lot of guys at the top that are wanting to maximize what time they have left, and a potential money to be made from a Gamrot or Fiziev fight might be significantly less than fighting each other, like Poirier Chandler or
Right.
Poirier fighting Diaz or Gaethje fighting whoever. I mean, you got all those scenarios out there, right? So
Yep.
yeah, I love that idea. Now, the more I'm thinking about Fiziev Gamrot, dude,
I mean,
that's
it's a sick
actually
fight.
and the stylistically, I mean, what
Yeah.
Gamrot
Yeah.
showed against Saryukian, I mean, wow, you really sold me on that. I think again,
It's
not what I thought I was going to say coming in, but once you break down the rest of the division, I don't know if I want to put Beneil in that fight. Just like I already did it with Gamrot, felt bad enough doing it there, but man, Beneil. That
Neil
man's
already deserves arguably a title shot because of his win streak. But so if you're not going to give him that, give him a big name for him to fight. You
yeah,
know what I mean? The poor guy. It's
yeah.
just crazy.
So I guess before we kind of move on here, RDA
Yeah.
did take a pretty big loss here.
Yeah.
Um, what does this mean for his future? I don't know if we're being a little too premature in talking about it, but I mean, I'm not thinking retirement or anything, but I'm assuming this guy's going to want to keep fighting.
Yeah.
What's is it too early to say? What this loss kind of means for him and his I guess his future.
I think he still is obviously definitely good enough to fight and beat really good talent. But I
Mhm.
think that one last run for the title that was very much in reach going into this main
Yeah.
event is probably gone now, which is unfortunate for a guy that really was putting it all together again at 36, at 37. I didn't realize he had such a bad year last year with he had two surgeries that I didn't know about until the promos and stuff today. So
Mhm.
I hope he continues fighting and gets a couple of good fights. I mean, I part of me doesn't even want to really matchmake for the guy because I don't want to put him up against these other young
I
up and
mean,
comers. But
the
call me
name that.
crazy.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, what if we run it back with him and Tony?
Yeah, yeah. A fight I thought of, and I know I said a different guy last week, but I actually prefer him to be the fight that would welcome Max Holloway to lightweight.
Oh, that'd be an interesting fight. That
I
would be
think that'd
very
be a
interesting.
very. I think that's probably better than doing Gaethje because I feel like you're kind of throwing Max to the wolves again. If you, I feel like Max, if he goes to lightweight, he should probably not fight like a top five guy, and I think
Yeah.
RDA would be the perfect opponent, another champion.
That's a great fight too. Like two legends of UFC, and
And,
that's a
RDA at this point in his career, he's not fighting, 3, 4 times a year. He's usually doing about twice. So
yeah,
we probably won't see him until early next year.
yeah.
That's just an option I'm throwing out there. I fear otherwise. You're kind of looking at him taking like a Saryukin fight. Like I feel like Arman.
I don't want that, for him.
I get it, but I mean again, like that's Arman. I think is still deserving of fighting a top 10 opponent, and
Yeah,
RDA kind of fills a really good role where he's not necessarily like a star. Like I mean he's got the accolades, right? He's been in the UFC a long time. He's in the 20 win club. He's a former lightweight champion. He's a stud all around.
yeah,
But he's a little bit below like a Tony in terms of even star power or fan favorite kind of thing.
yeah. That's
Not
fair.
saying not saying he should be, just that's kind of the reality.
Yeah,
But he's a great gatekeeper right now. And I
and
hate
that's
that
not even a negative
it's
connotation.
not a negative,
Yeah,
but I think if you're RDA and you're committed to continuing your career, but you kind of recognize maybe he doesn't. I'm sure he still thinks he could still put a string of wins together and get a title fight. But if we're kind of closing the door on that, the next best thing is to be testing out these guys that are kind of ready to get that top 10 matchup. I mean, I don't think I go out. I don't think it'd be crazy for him to upset Arman Saryukin, but I also think Arman could, I mean, it could be just a lot of what we saw here with Fiziev. But I mean, he was very competitive with Fiziev, even if he
he
was
was.
losing.
He was.
So I get what you're saying. I don't dislike a Tony fight. Um,
I
I
like,
don't know.
yeah, RDA Tony, names like Tony, Dan Hooker, Diego Ferreira.
Ooh, Dan Hooker's a good one
I
too.
like those types of fights.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree. I do agree with that. I do like the idea of Dan Hooker. The timing's got to kind of match
of
up too.
course,
So,
of course.
but all the respect to both these guys for taking this fight for obvious reasons. RDA kind of probably should have been fighting someone. In an
Right.
ideal world, he's fighting a top five opponent, coming off of two back-to-back just baller wins.
Yeah.
Fiziev, I felt like this was the toughest matchup for him from here to the title. So he passed that. I mean, all the
And like
credit
you
for
were
both
saying
guys.
Friday, he was wanting it, too. Like
Yeah,
no one else
no.
calls out RDA, so
This
yeah.
fight fell out. They could have went their separate ways,
Yep.
but Fiziev continued to hammer that that's the fight he wants. So
100%.
respect to both guys. But
Absolutely.
we got more.